You're watching the introductory demo to Barkeep Online. This demo provides an overview of the features and benefits of Barkeep Online. If you haven't already watched the Barkeep app demo, we recommend watching that demo first, as the information presented in the Barkeep Online demo builds on what was shown in the Barkeep app demo. As a reminder, there are two components to Barkeep: Barkeep app and Barkeep Online. Barkeep app is available in the iTunes App Store and costs $39.99. You use Barkeep app to take inventory and run basic reports like usage reports that show you how much liquor was used between two inventories. Barkeep Online is our hosted cloud-based service. It's an optional addition to Barkeep app. It costs $25 per month or $250 a year, and you sign up for it at barkeepapp.com. You use Barkeep Online to run variance and pour cost reports, which allow you to compare how much liquor you actually used based on your inventory data to how much liquor you should have used based on your sales data. You also use Barkeep Online to create sales items and recipes, to upload sales data, and to create liquor orders. You access Barkeep Online through our website, barkeepapp.com. Click Add Barkeep Online to create a new Barkeep Online account, or sign in to sign into an existing account. We're going to log into our Barkeep Online Demo account. Barkeep Online supports many of the same features that are available in Barkeep app. For example, I can manage my items, categories, locations, and suppliers in both Barkeep app and Barkeep Online. I can also create an inventory in Barkeep Online the same way that I can in Barkeep app. I'll show you those features really quickly, but I want to get through those quickly so that I can focus on the features that are only available in Barkeep Online. Let's start with items. Items are the products that you carry in inventory, the physical products like 1 liter bottles of Absolute. I can look at my item list here. I can select an item and modify it. For example, I can set a par level. A par level tells Barkeep how much of a particular item you want to have on hand and helps in creating order reports. So I could say I want 12 bottles of Absolute on hand at any time and go ahead and save that. And now I've updated my par level for Absolute. I can also click on the Show Usage button, and that brings up a list of every single inventory entry where Absolute 1 liter was used. So I can see that there were 6 or 7 entries for Absolute 1 liter in my most recent inventory. And that's really useful if you want to kind of track, look for problems with a particular item, look for errors in an inventory, or just kind of look at your overall usage for a particular product. I can also go to settings and categories and look at my categories. There are 2 levels of categories: category groups and categories. A category group is a high-level grouping like beer, and then underneath beer there's domestic bottled beer, domestic draft, premium bottle, premium draft, and ultra premium. So I can go ahead and change the name of a category or click on a category group and look at all the categories under it. And this is really a way of grouping together your items into some way that makes logical sense to you. These are completely customizable. You can delete all the category groups that are created by default and replace them with your own, whatever you want to do. You can also manage your locations in Barkeep. Locations are meant to be physical locations within a single venue. So it's things like your walk-in cooler, maybe the main bar and a mezzanine bar, your liquor storage room, that sort of thing. These are completely customizable. You can delete all of the locations that are set up by default and replace them with your own. You can also manage your suppliers. Suppliers are who you buy your liquor from. And so when you create a receiving inventory in Barkeep, you would assign that receiving inventory to a supplier so that you know where you got your product from. You can also manage and create inventories in Barkeep Online. So if I click on inventories, I'll see my full list of inventories. I can go in and look at the details of a specific inventory. You can also search in here. So like, for example, if I want to see all the entries for Grey Goose, I can type in GREY for Grey Goose and see all the entries in this inventory that contain Grey Goose. And I can create inventories here. So let's say I receive 2 cases of Absolute from Southern Wine and Spirits. I can create a new inventory. I can change the inventory type to receiving, choose Southern as my supplier, enter the invoice number, enter the dollar amount. So if it was $20 a bottle, it'll come out to about $480. I'm going to add items. I'm going to search for absolute, choose my absolute, say that I received 2 cases of 12, and my price per case is $240 at $20 a bottle. And I hit done, and now I've created my receiving inventory. So as you can see, most of the features that are available in Barkeep app are also available in Barkeep Online. Now let's look at some of the advanced features that are only available in Barkeep Online. I'm going to start by showing you the variance report. The variance report is really the most powerful report in Barkeep Online because it lets you compare how much liquor you actually used based on your inventory data to how much you should have used based on your sales data. In order to run a variance report, you need to have taken 2 full inventories. You choose one inventory as your starting inventory and another as your ending inventory. You also need to have uploaded your sales data for that time period, and you need to have created your sales items and recipes in order to run a variance report. Okay, let's go ahead and run our variance report and look at the results. So our variance report shows us our total sales, which is how much liquor we sold between our starting inventory and our ending inventory. The liquor cost, which is the cost of all the liquor that was used between the starting inventory and the ending inventory. And the pour cost, which is the cost divided by sales. It also shows us our ideal cost, which is how much liquor we should have used based on our sales data and recipes. It shows the ideal pour cost, which is what the pour cost should have been if people poured exactly what you've specified in your recipes. It shows the over and short for the cost, which is how much the cost of the extra liquor that you used. Your percent over and short, which is the difference between the ideal pour cost and the actual pour cost. So that's really useful information because it shows you basically how much extra liquor you're using compared to what you should be based on your sales data and your recipes. And then finally over here we see a rating. This is basically an efficiency rating, and what you want to see is for this rating to be somewhere in the, it should be as close to 100% as possible. Anything in the 95% to 105% is reasonable. Once you fall outside of that range, then you really need to start looking at why people aren't pouring what they should be. At the bottom of the variance summary screen, you can see your variance report details by category group. Category groups are the high-level groupings of the items that you sell, so things like beer, liquor, miscellaneous, and wine. And you can see for each of these category groups, you can see what your sales were, how much you used, how much you sold, and your over and under, what your actual cost was, your ideal cost, your over and short, and then your actual pour cost, your ideal pour cost, and your percent over and short for your pour cost. And finally, you can see the rating by individual category group. Now, if you click on variance details, this will show you details for individual items. So I can see for Bud Light, I can see exactly how much Bud Light I actually used, how much I should have used based on my sales data, and the difference between the two. So this is where you really want to look for problems. You want to look for areas where your over and short is very large as a percentage of how much you used. So for example, why did we use 47 more Bud Lights than we should have? That's something that I would want to investigate and figure out. Is someone not ringing up Bud Lights? Did I make a mistake in my receiving? That kind of thing. If I click on sales data, I can see the details of everything that I sold that goes into this report. So I can see for each of my sales items, how many I sold, the average sales price that takes into account promos and discounts and that sort of thing, and then my total sales dollars. Okay, now let's look at the used details tab. This tab shows us all the details about how much liquor I used between these two inventories. It's exactly the same as a usage report. This shows me, for example, for Bud Light that I started with 997, I received 192 bottles, I ended with 251, and I used 938. So this is a good place to go to look at, why does it think that I used 938 bottles of Bud Light? This will take you to the details of that. And then finally, you can click on the sold details tab to look at the details of how Barkeep figured out exactly how much liquor it thinks you should have used based on your sales data. For each item or category, it'll show you all the sales items that have recipes that reference that item, how many you sold, and as a result of that, how much Barkeep thinks you should have used. So you can see here that I sold 874 Bud Light bottles, so my expected usage is 874 bottles. And if I look down here, I can see that I sold 30 of the $2 Bud Light draft specials, and so my expected usage is 510 ounces. I can tell from that my recipe for this sales item must be 17 ounces of Bud Light draft. Now, you may have noticed that a bunch of the columns in this report are blue, and that represents that those are hyperlinks, and you can click on them to get to more details. So let me go ahead and click on this $2 Bud Light draft link, and what you see is the details for that sales item, and you can see that down here it shows that my recipe for this sales item is 17 ounces of the item Bud Light keg. So that makes sense. I mean, when I looked at the expected usage, we could figure out that the recipe must be 17 ounces. But if a recipe doesn't look right, if the amounts in there don't look right, you can just click on that link and go and see what your recipe actually specifies. Similarly, with the used details, if something doesn't look right, like if you think, I don't really believe that I received 192 bottles of Bud Light, you can just go ahead and click on the link and see all the inventory entries that are used in this report that reference Bud Light. And so I can see all the entries for Bud Light in my starting inventory, all the receiving entries for Bud Light, and then all the entries for Bud Light in my ending inventory. So if something doesn't look right, you can click on that link and get to the details, and maybe you'll notice that, oh, this isn't right. I didn't receive one case, I actually received 7 cases. So you would just change that to 7 cases here and it would change your results. So those links are actually a really quick and easy way for you to drill down into more details and find problems or errors or things that just don't look right. That's pretty much it for the variance report. The variance report shows you how much liquor you actually used based on your inventory data, how much liquor you should have used based on your sales data, and the difference between the two. Hopefully you can understand how that would be useful for you to see how well your bar is operating. Now, we've already talked about how you use Barkeep app to take inventory, and that builds up your inventory data and allows Barkeep to figure out how much liquor you actually used. Now let's look at your sales data. Sales data is how Barkeep figures out how much liquor you should have used. So I'm going to go in and drill down into this sales data. Sales data is very simple. It's for every sales item, it's how many you sold, and the dollar amount in sales. Now, the way that you get sales data into Barkeep is from your POS system. You go to your POS system and export your sales data as an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file. You can then upload that Excel spreadsheet or CSV file directly into Barkeep. Now, you can also type this data in manually, either into BarkeepOnline or in a spreadsheet, but generally the way that people enter their sales data is by exporting it from their POS system and then importing it into BarkeepOnline. Now let's drill down into one of these sales items. So let's look at the Red Bull sales item. So a sales item has several pieces of information. It tells me a name, a sales item number, a description, and then you can also assign a sales item to a category or item. So if I sell a Red Bull, I want to assign that to the item Red Bull. That tells Barkeep that whenever you sell $100 worth of Red Bull, those sales dollars should be rolled up under the category Red Bull and the item Red Bull 250 milliliter. And then at the bottom is a recipe. A recipe tells Barkeep exactly how much should be used when you sell an item. So if I sell a Red Bull, then my recipe says that I should use 1 can of Red Bull. That makes sense. Now, sales items can also have multiple items in their recipe. Let's find an example of that. I happen to know that this bar has a specialty cocktail called a Botox. So I'm going to go ahead and search for Bo and find the Botox. And I can see that this recipe has multiple entries in it. a Botox has 2 ounces of effin cucumber vodka and 1 ounce of Saint Germain. Now this also uses some mixers. Now this particular bar does not track their mixers, so it's not included in the recipe. You don't have to include things in a recipe unless you're actually tracking that in your inventory. So if you're not adding it to your inventory, there's no reason to add it to your recipes. So this is what your sales data looks like in Barkeep. You have your sales item with a recipe, and then you upload how many of those you sold and the total dollar amount as a spreadsheet that you export from your POS system. It's really very simple. But the recipes are what tell Barkeep when you sell something, this is exactly how much liquor you should use. And that's how we figure out all the metrics about your pour cost, your expected pour cost, your expected usage, that sort of thing. You can also use Barkeep Online to help you figure out how much liquor to order. So if you click on Orders and select your most recent full inventory and click Run Report, Barkeep will tell you how much liquor we think you should order based on how much you have on hand right now. The way that this works is for each of your items, you set a par level. Now the par level tells Barkeep after you receive your order, how much of that item do you want to have on hand? For example, I set my par level to 60 for Beck's 12 ounce, which means that once I receive my order, I want to have at least 60 bottles of Beck's on hand. You can also set a reorder point. Reorder point tells Barkeep at what level does your current inventory have to drop below before we place an order. Now typically your reorder point is the same as your par level, but sometimes you might want to set it a little differently. So for example, I might say that once I receive my order, I want to have 60 Beck's on hand, but I really don't need to order it until I drop below 50. So I could set my par level to 60 and my reorder point to 50, but generally those are set to the same thing. You also set an order unit size for each of your items. So for example, for bottled beer, you might set your order unit size to 24, which tells Barkeep that you want to order your bottled beer in cases of 24. For kegs, you would set your order unit size to 1 because you want to order single kegs. For liquor, you probably want to set it to 12 for most items because you want to get your liquor in cases of 12. For some things, you might want to only get it in cases of 6, like Grey Goose, for example. And then if you have specialty items that you don't really sell a lot of, you might want to order that by the single bottle. It's really up to you. You can set everything to the single bottle or to case of 12, case of 24, whatever makes sense for the way that you like to order. Now, when you run an order report, Barkeep figures out how much we think you have on hand right now based on your most recent full inventory. And that takes into account information like if you wasted a bottle after that inventory, then we would deduct that. If you recorded a whole bunch of empty bottles, those would be deducted. So your perpetual is how much we think you have on hand right now based on your most recent full inventory, anything you received, anything you returned, any waste, and any empties. Now you can see that your order report is segmented by supplier, so we tell you for each supplier exactly how much of each item you need to order. And then after you run the report, you can download it, which would download it as an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can open that spreadsheet. Once you've downloaded your order report as a spreadsheet, the spreadsheet will contain a tab for each of your suppliers. So for example, if I click on the Matagrano tab, I can see all of the items that I need to order from Matagrano. So this is a really convenient way for you to figure out how much to order and get it in a nice, easy to read spreadsheet. You can also use Barkeep to track banquets. Banquets are basically a way of tracking how much liquor was used for a specific event. Banquets in Barkeep have a name and a guest count, a start and end date, optional notes and descriptions, and you can also specify what locations a banquet uses. Now basically with a banquet, you want to create an inventory at the start and at the end of your banquet. And so you count how much liquor you have at the start and the end of the banquet. You can also receive product into a banquet or transfer product into or out of a banquet. And then when you're done, you can run a banquet usage report. And the banquet usage report will show you how much you started with, how much you received, how much you had at the end, and how much was used. And this is a really convenient way of finding out exactly the cost of all the liquor that was used during a banquet, and you can use that to figure out how much to charge the guests. There are several other reports that are available in Barkeep. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go into each of these in detail in this demo, but I can describe them really briefly. A pour cost report is essentially the same as a variance report. It just presents the information in a slightly different way. A usage report tells you how much liquor was used between two inventories. We've already seen a banquet usage report. A perpetual report is actually part of an order, and it tells you how much liquor Barkeep thinks you have on hand right now based on your most recent full inventory. And a receiving report gives you details about how much liquor you received over a specific period of time. Finally, I'd like to point out that there are a lot of help resources available for you. We have very detailed user guides for all of our products. We have some videos showing you how to use different parts of the product. We have email support, which is support@barkeepapp.com. We offer phone support, which is 1-888-309-9928. And there are a large number of troubleshooting and frequently asked questions documents that tell you in detail how to use various parts of the product. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this demo. We hope that it answered some of your basic questions. If you have any more detailed questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. You can email us at support@barkeepapp.com or call our phone line for support, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you again, and have a good day.